Debra, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you for a lot of different reasons, but just when we were briefly chatting off record, you actually just feel like an old friend. I feel like I've known you for a while, so it's going to be really cool to be able to have a deeper conversation with you.
Well, I am thrilled to be here, so thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So I would love it if you could just take us back a little bit and tell us a little bit about your origin story in a nutshell. What were the kind of layers and steps along their journey that have brought you to holistic intuitive coaching?
Okay. Well, I will do it briefly. I have lots of years of experience, so I will do it in a nutshell, as you've asked me to do. So I grew up in a highly dysfunctional family, which is what my memoir Beyond Chaos is about, and always had this sense that I wanted to empower myself and other women to full self-expression. And it took an interesting route. I was in the hospital when I was 3 years old, and it was actually connected with some abuse that I was experiencing. And so when I was in the hospital, I was literally only 3 years old, but I thought to myself, I can do better than this in terms of how things were going in the hospital. I know it sounds a little odd, but truly I remember that. So I grew up, became and highly educated as a healthcare executive. And so became that probably right before I left to go on my entrepreneurial career. I was with a large managed healthcare plan and was responsible for 3 states. So I was the chief operating officer. And that was my dream, totally my dream. And then when I obtained this dream, I was not at all happy. I was shocked because this, I had been going towards this and really thinking this was going to be the pinnacle. And from the outside, it was definitely a pinnacle. Everybody was, friends and family were proud and all of that good stuff. But it didn't make me happy. So from there, I went on an even more intensive journey of introspection and really left the corporate world and did 2 things, healthcare operations consulting and coaching. And really how I got into coaching was really interesting because I would complete a project and then it was usually the CEO would say, well, but I want you still as a sounding board, so can I do that? And I'm like, heck yes, you just have to pay me a monthly fee and I'm at your disposal. So that's really
awesome.
That's really
how
awesome. I became a coach.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it is incredible that it goes back to such a young age, just actually having that intuition that I could do better, I deserve better, I meant for more. That's absolutely incredible. Talk to me a little bit about what it took when you pivoted from the corporate world and the bravery of really going out on your own, because I think a lot of listeners, especially now during these COVID times, and maybe they've had a loss of employment, are like, you know what, I feel like I meant for more too. And I feel like I want to, venture off into my own, business, but it takes a lot of moxie. What do you think helped you make that pivot?
Great question. And I love the word moxie because it's not a word used a lot, and it really is what it takes to become an entrepreneur. and not everyone is you know, designed to do that. I think well, I know what helped me is, you know, in my family of origin, I knew that what was offered there was not what was not healthy, was not good for me, and so I was very, very independent. And so this really passion and uh, yeah, just passion for independence and freedom and doing it on my own was, you know, fueled me going out on my own. The other very practical thing I did is, before I quit my corporate job, I made a deal with myself that I would have at least one client before I left the corporate world, so that so that my left critical monkey
So
mind
smart.
uh, would
So
would
smart.
would calm down. And so I did. I had a client before I left my corporate job, and that was, you know, uh, safety net, my knowing that I could do this. And then
I think that's great. I think that it really helps, as you said, calm the monkey mind. And it gives a sense, in a way, of kind of having a foot in both worlds, but it's also a safety net. And you can absolutely build your business starting out with a side hustle until you have some confidence in that social proof that, wait a second, clients are coming my way and they're interested, and I'm seeing some transformation in the work that I'm doing. So I love that you did that. So, Debra, I know that the money blocks and money mindset issues definitely hold back female entrepreneurs. I would love it if you could speak to that point.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's not just women entrepreneurs, it's also women executives. So over the last 30 years, I have coached thousands of women around the issue of negotiating for what they're worth, whether it's a salary and compensation package for executives, whether it's in sales executives who need to for their uh, you know, for the percentage that they get once they close a deal, or whether it's entrepreneurs who are putting together their packages. And what I have found is that, you know, the bigger issue behind it is about worthiness. Am I worth, you know, X, Y, and Z? And you know, we were talking earlier about monkey mind, and I find with you know, I can't think of an example where it isn't true, where the left critical, judgmental left brain is saying, you know, things like, you know, are you really worth it? You know, who do you think you are? You know, all kinds of negative self-talk, but it's real. It's, you know, very, very real. And so, you know, there's a lot to unpack, if you will, in order for the woman to be comfortable asking for really what she's worth. And I find,
Absolutely.
yeah, I find the understating of what women think they're worth is just amazing. You know, amazing in not a good way.
Amazing in not a good way. Absolutely. Because it's a deep rooted issue and there are some mindset layers going on that contribute to our actions or our lack of increasing or charging what we're worth. Are you more of a fan of stair stepping your prices up, or more of a fan of really working on the underlying issues to fully feel like you could step in and embrace the higher rates?
Both. Absolutely both. So I'm a both and gal. And what I mean by that is that if you start charging more than is comfortable for you, then something backfires. There's some sabotage that goes on. So
Or over delivering and people pleasing. You're right. There is always something. That's such a good thing. And I had a previous guest that was talking about it being a capacity issue. And you really need to like step into that before you can, fully get into the higher rates.
Yes, and then I always love that. And then at the same time, I'm always working with the women I work with, the brilliant, high achieving, fabulous women I work with. I'm working on that monkey mind and self talk. And what I mean by that is one of the things that I know had helped me, or actually, had me overcome my critical left brain, is that there's another piece, which is your still small voice, which is your knowingness, your higher self, your intuitive guidance, whatever you want to call it. That voice always has your highest good at the forefront. And so I literally teach women how to listen to that. And as you listen to that and you develop a trusting relationship with it, it's just like, any trusting relationship, you develop a trusting relationship with this intuitive guidance. What happens is the judgmental, critical mind gets quieter. So at this point, because I've been working on this for well over, I'm hearing in my intuition is telling me over 40 years with this. My intuitive guidance is louder than my critical mind, which is such a gift.
Debra, thank you so much for joining me again. I want to be really transparent because that's how I roll. So yesterday we started recording this podcast episode and the internet just dropped. We were talking off camera that I think we just have so much energy that we probably just combusted the bandwidth. So in almost 100 podcast episodes, I've never had the internet drop, not only once, but twice. So I just want to thank you for your patience. And I also want to lift you up because your immediate, authentic reaction was, oh, I'm blessed. I get to speak to you 2 days in a row. And that really speaks to your personality and your heart. So thank you so much for showing up on day 2 to continue this really beautiful conversation.
Oh, absolutely. It was delightful, and I fully expect it will continue to be. So, and thank you for the acknowledgement. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about resilience, especially not only because of the global climate, but in general in our lives and as entrepreneurs, that specific quality of being able to bounce back and be resilient and just kind of go with the flow and look for that silver lining in things is a really tremendous trait that keeps that momentum. So I would love it. I know that you've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. I would love it if you could talk to that trait of resilience, what it's meant to you in your own business, and how to cultivate it for people listening that are maybe struggling with that right now.
Beautiful question. Beautiful, beautiful question. So first of all, I want to say what my definition of resilience is, because you could look it up in the dictionary, but everybody has really in their mind a definition. And so mine is, it's how quickly I can get back to center after something has thrown me off. And it is so important to, when something has thrown you off, to get back to center. And for entrepreneurs particularly, not in, a few days, a few weeks, a few months, a few years, but like as immediately as you can. And so there have been, I mean, resiliency is probably the thing that has made me successful over the last 30 plus years. So you hit it right, right spot on. And it goes, my mind's going in terms of, because there's lots of different kinds of resiliency, or more accurately, there's different things that you have to be resilient about.
Sure.
And so, what comes to mind is early on in my career, I wasn't just a coach, but I was a healthcare consultant. And one of the things that I did and did well, very, very well, and made a lot of money at was working with hospitals and physician groups to negotiate managed care contracts with health plans. And I became an expert and in that. And it was during the time where hospitals and large medical groups didn't have an internal resource. And so, then what happened is it became such a big deal that they had to have an internal resource. So when they got their internal resources, then I was really out of my niche.
Oh, interesting.
And so I had to, the word these days is pivot, but I had to like change gears is what I call it, and find something else that I was just as good at. And so without going into a lot of detail, I'm an operations expert. So I would make things internally in hospitals and medical groups be more efficient. So really an efficiency expert is what I went to next. And it's also, so the amount, I can't even count the amount of times that I have had to reinvent myself, which is you have to be, you have to be resilient in order to reinvent yourself. You can't resist it. And so one of the keys, you asked me, what would I say to the listeners? I would say to the listeners, and I have trained myself over the years with this, is no resistance to whatever shows up. Now, easier said than done, but no resistance when it's just like, okay, got it.
And now we're doing it this way.
Yeah, and also what is the learning when something happens that you don't prefer, and what is the silver lining, as you were saying. So
absolutely. And I think even just as pertinent and relevant as the internet dropping today, in my other office, it was doing that all day. And I was mentioning to you, it was kind of this secret blessing, because in reality, the very best thing that I could do today was literally go through stacks of paper and get organized and start playing things that needed to be done that were non-online related. So it really was kind of a little secret blessing of like, yeah, I feel much more grounded and calm because I took the time, because I was forced to take the time because the internet wasn't working. And it's just like, how do you keep rolling with it? Do you think that resilience can be learned? You said that it was a practice that through the years you've kind of trained yourself. So that sounds to me as if you feel resilience isn't a born trait, but that you can learn it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I just want to mention that I had great training. This is what I want to say exactly. I had great training from my childhood and my family of origin to be resilient, because it was very, very challenging. It was highly dysfunctional. And that whole story, if anyone's interested, is in my book, Beyond Chaos. But the thing that I'm so grateful for is that I learned to be resilient, and it was like a daily practice. And so by the time,
I mean, it really sounds like those experiences shaped you into the woman and the leader that you are today.
absolutely, no question about it. So I have no regrets at all, which I love to say.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think it's powerful for anybody who may be currently in a struggle, and just knowing that they will get on the other side stronger, and having had learned lessons that they needed and probably are going to be better for that. And like you said earlier, it is easier said than done, harder when you're in the thick of it. Like, you do need a little space to get perspective. But I'm really curious, because I'm seeing a pattern come up more and more, especially in my podcast guests. And it typically is a freedom to talk about their traumas, their past, and the stories that I think in previous times were swept under the rug and kept silent, and where people were really more struggling in silence. Do you see that in your work as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I see that particularly for women, because we're swimming in a patriarchy, and the women have a harder time speaking their voice and speaking the truth, their truth, and that what's happening in the world, starting, not starting with, but what comes to mind is the Me Too movement.
Yeah, you're reading my mind. That's just what I was thinking of as well.
That women, are telling more of their stories. And what I want to say is that I was very clear that I was going to tell my story, but I was going to tell my story when I no longer felt like a victim.
Yes.
And
that's amazing. You need the space from that 100% when it's not so raw. Again, it's that perspective. I want to ask you, do you feel that this maybe increased confidence to use our voice as women is attributed to the female energy that's rising right now worldwide?
Yes, and it has to do with I love this line of questioning, because it's right where I am right in this moment, and many of us are, and so there's two things I want to say. One is, I believe that the patriarchy has reached its peak and is no longer, it's in the middle of disintegration, is what it according, as I see it. And there's lots and lots of different pieces that have it crumbling. And what is interesting is those who prefer the patriarchy then get louder and louder about how it should
they're freaking out. They're freaking out.
How it should be, stay forever. But I had I just had a coaching client today, and she gets on the phone and she says, my message through my meditation was to use my voice and get louder and louder. And then I shared with her that every single one of my women clients, and that's all I have is women coaching clients, is saying that same thing in their own way. And so,
Absolutely. I agree.
you know, it's the stepping up. And I know for myself that I'm stepping up. I just want to say directly related to this is that I hired my own coach, because I speak all over the world actually, but I hired a speaking coach specifically to push me um, to push the envelope, to have me speak even more boldly.
Good for
So
you. That's amazing. I'm always advocating that coaches need coaches, and I think that to what we were speaking about off record of the whole up leveling, and I think that that really dovetails into this female rising, getting inspired, and that whole if one woman can do it, I can do it, and using our voice. It's really exciting. Like, I'm so passionate about it, and I admire people that know when they have a gap and reach out for support so they just can continue improving themselves. Again, a huge fan of Kaizen philosophy, that never-ending improvement, and this is just a really cool conversation. The speaking thing, I really want to tap into, because you're an intuitive coach and you have these gifts. Where is your boundary line of, I think that that's maybe too much right now? Like, how do you tap in? I know you've been doing this practice for a long time of listening to that inner voice and following the pull, but there is some trepidatious times when it's like, oh, I really want to say that, but I don't know. Is it too woo?
uh, um, really good question. Well, I see it in a couple ways. Let me just speak to a couple of them. One is when I'm working with my clients, and I'm in the zone. I don't know how else to say it. I'm in the intuitive zone, and I will get guidance what to say and what not to say, and how much someone can handle in the moment.
Awesome.
And I am so grateful for this, because and I have long-term clients, and I believe I have long-term clients because I have that ability to not push, to stretch always, but not push beyond the stretch point.
Yeah, that is such a gift. And I have to say, like, as a Taurus, I don't necessarily have that. I'm more on the bull, the bull side of things, where it's like, I'm going to say it like I see it, and here it is. And you can definitely tell when they haven't had the capacity to receive it, because it's like, ooh, I'm like, I lost him. Shoot, I lost him.
Yes, yeah.
So that's a beautiful skill. I love that.
And it took a lot of practice. So I haven't always been, that skilled, but at this point I am. And just the other point about being bold and what to say and what not. So I've been working for a couple of months with this on my signature speech, and actually I'm going to reveal, this is the first time I've revealed the title of it, which is, it's called Too Big for Your Britches.
Nice, love it.
And it's about the patriarchy and how many women have been told they're too big, too loud, too sensitive, too something. And my personal experience with that, and how I've really grown tremendously from my 20s now to my 60s. And so it's my own journey, with the intention to inspire women.
It sounds like it will. That's awesome. When will you start releasing that? I know that these are different times. A lot of the speaking engagements are converting to virtual speaking summits and things of that nature. So how are you pivoting in that arena? Because if that's really a part of your diversified offerings, are you needing to shift that as well?
Well, it's a perfect question. I want to just finish my thought. I will answer that. My thought is that I have to be bold to be doing it. So, and it may be too bold for some people, but I'm willing to be, in this case, too bold. You know, the whole subject is around too something. And so I may be too bold, and that's going to be okay with me. So I just wanted to finish that.
Oh, I'm
that
so
thing,
glad you did. That's,
that,
yeah, that's the perfect soundbite. Be willing to be too bold. I love it.
yeah, and I have to be willing. I have to walk my talk. You know, I really have to walk my talk. And so, yes, I mean, you know, recently I was in China speaking for 6 weeks, and, you know, I'm not going to be going to China anytime soon to do my thing. And so, I have, really had, so I've been, and I shared with you, I've been on a lot of podcasts versus being in, you know, speaking in person. And even the talks, like I have a talk scheduled for September 9th, and it's in person, and it's still up in the air of whether I'm going to be doing it via Zoom or in person. And it's, you know, it's different. You know, I just got to say it's different.
It's absolutely different, but you know, it just ties in beautifully to the resilience thing we were talking about, and also pivoting. And I really want the listener to understand that they have it within their power as well. If speaking was a part of their portfolio, if it's something that they were passionate about and they really got charged up by sharing their message with a large number of people, they can absolutely do it in a number of other ways that are acceptable right now during these times, like podcasts, like their own YouTube channel, like popping on Facebook and doing stories or lives. Like, we really do have so much beautiful digital resources at our fingertips. And that's really all about the growth mindset. It's not either or. And you were talking yesterday about being an and girl, a but and girl, or
No,
something.
a both and.
Both and, yeah. And it's
Girl.
the same kind of thing. It's just like, oh, okay, I can do this and that. I can do both and. So I just really think that that's a great tie-in. One of the things that I really loved about your work, and I made a note of it yesterday, and I didn't get time to ask you yesterday, but this really struck me because I think many, many female entrepreneurs, especially the listeners, can relate to this. And it is looking good on the outside and secretly struggling on the inside. I would love it if you could speak to that, because I think that that's also crumbling, which is a good thing. I think that's the old paradigm that in order to be successful, I have to be a certain size, look a certain way, speak a certain way, and I'm really excited that I'm starting to see some of that shift and change, and that there is a thirst for authenticity and transparency. But I would love your wisdom on that topic.
Yeah. Well, it is how people get to me, actually. So I attract and magnetize high achieving women who are look extremely successful and are extremely successful, and they have the critical, judgmental monkey mind that we all have to one degree or another, saying, did I do it right? Am I enough? Did I include everything? Am I, and then the whole perfect thing is part of that. I literally train people to tone down their monkey mind and to beef up, if you will, at their intuitive guidance, their still small voice, their higher self, their knowingness is my favorite. And so it's literally a matter of balancing those voices, because everyone has those voices. And my experience is that women have a louder, what you're talking about, a louder, critical, judgmental voice. And it's literally just a matter of, not just, but it again, takes practice, but managing and balancing those two voices, which is the left brain and the right brain. But I have not ever met a woman who has not had some degree of that struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. In that realm, do you feel that we magnetize people that are like us, and because we have traversed the same struggles that they are currently in, that there is like a like beget like attraction?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I there is, and then I would also bring energetics into it, because we're all energy and we all vibrate at a certain vibration. It's just, it's scientific fact that that happens, and that we're all doing that. And so it is also on what I would call a vibrational match.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So question on that, because I have a lot of law of attraction listeners that you're speaking their language. So this is a good thing, but curious when there is kind of like a mix of people that are your dream clients, your ideal client avatars, if you will, and they're a pleasure to work with. But then there's maybe one or two that sneak in. I'm going to say sneak in your channel,
Yeah.
and are a struggle to work with. Is that because you still have issues to clean up? And so in some way, there's still an opening for a client that's not willing to do the work, or is in victimhood, or whatever it happens to be, that you feel like, how the heck did that get in? Like,
Yeah.
so, and
that is such that's a $90 million question. I love it. You're asking fabulous questions. I love this. So, I think there's two things, because certainly I have had that happen, for sure. I'm not sure any person has not had that. One is, I think they're there for I'll speak for myself, that they were there for me to recognize that I don't have to settle. Like, I don't have to struggle. I don't have to suffer. I don't have to have these clients. Somebody else may love it. I mean, I actually know people who like like that. I don't. And I'll gladly segue them to those who like it. But I have over the years, I've gotten quicker to recognize it, and quicker to really have them go to someplace they're going to be better served.
Sure. Absolutely. 100%. I think it does play into a martyr personality that feels that they can be the one, that savior complex, to come in and like fix the troubled client, like stick with them for some kind of loyalty. You can tell I have
I would concur with that. And the great thing that I've gotten, I just want to say this little tip for the listeners as well, is that I have learned over the years, before I sign on a client, I interview the client before I will say that there's a fit. And I've gotten very masterful at knowing what's going to what's not going to be a fit. That's the best way to say it. And then
you can give someone, what's like one or two red flags for someone that's like, ooh, I want to be able to do that. What's one or two red flags that you could share if they're kind of in that are we a perfect fit stage before they've signed the engagement?
Well, one is, you've mentioned already, do you feel this person is willing to do the work? I actually make my clients sign a contract that says I call it home play, not homework, but that they will do the home play, and that you know, that even if they don't understand why they're doing it, they will do the home play. That you know, there's certain other things in the contract, and if and of course I go over that, and if they're hesitant or don't, you know, or resist or push back, then I already know that it's gonna, you know, that it's gonna be an issue. And the second thing is, I believe that everyone has intuition, and they've developed it to whatever extent they've developed it to. But, you know, my intuition is, you know, is spot on, and it will say, you know, the red flag is no. That's the red flag.
As simple as that. I really love that you said that, because I do think that we can make this a very mysterious subject. And again, when that higher, louder voice that's saying, well, you don't have intuition, that's something that like people are blessed with, or that's this or that's that. I love that you just broke it down in such a simple way. Oh, your red flag is your internal guidance system saying, no, walk away. Like, we can demystify that. And it's just as simple as that. I really, yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Debra, in your 30 years of being an entrepreneur, what's one thing that you wished that you knew earlier?
Oh my good, that I wished that I knew earlier. Oh, that I had permission to charge what I was really worth.
Beautiful. How long did it take you before you had that reckoning?
Oh, I think I'm still reckoning with it, because, you know, but I think the real reckoning was probably within the first 3 to 5 years of my business, because I started, I think we covered some of this yesterday, but I started coaching women about, you know, what to charge and their value and their worth. So as I was coaching women, again, I had to walk my own talk. So if I'm not doing that, then I have no business speaking it.
I love that. I think so much of our business is to heal our own self. And I see often in the 29 years that I've been an entrepreneur, it's literally like, oh, wow, this is me talking to me. Like, this person came into my realm to heal me. Like, it's a magical, magical thing. I find being a solopreneur is one of the most transformational experiences that you can have. That's my personal experience and belief. But I'm curious, if you wanted to leave our listeners with some bright light wisdom, what do you really want them to know?
Wow. Okay. There's so many things. So let me just feel into that. I would leave it with this, that we all have what we need to know internally. And we always think it's, you know, somewhere out there, and it isn't. So even if you don't know, if you were talking about tech equipment, even if you don't know where to go for the tech equipment, you look internally, and you will get guidance about literally a specific place to go to, that will lead you to the right place. And so you have it all. That's what I would leave the audience with. You have it all internally.
I love it. I'll definitely share the link to your book, Beyond Chaos. I'm excited to get my hands on a copy of that as well. And how else can people take a step closer to you and learn more about your work?
My website, which has tons of information on it, and anything you would ever want to know about what I do and who I am, is creativing.info. And I'm going to spell that. It's a combination of creative living. So it's creativing.info. So creativing.info. And
Nice.
it's all there, and I would love to hear from the listeners. Absolutely.
Ah, that's great. This has been such a joy. We got double the pleasure with 2 back-to-back episodes that I will merge together as one and share. I'll make sure to put your website link and your book link in the show notes. And thank you so very much for being a guest on Women Developing Brilliance.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been a total delight.
Take good care. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.